Viewpoints on the talk station FM 107 AM 1240. You got to be careful. You throw a stone, you might hit somebody you know. I don't necessarily know this lady, but I do know where she's from. She's from Raleigh, North Carolina. She is the National Press Secretary for the Republican National Committee in Washington, D.C. And in spite of her sort of right-leaning tendencies, I don't know how it happened. She's a graduate of Chapel College, as I like to call it. Blair, what happened to you? Were you not indoctrinated when you were in Chapel Hill?
I always say if you can make it out of UNC Chapel Hill as a Republican, you know you're the real deal conservative.
I applaud that. All right, Blair, first question. What's it been like at RNC headquarters today and maybe possibly this weekend? But what's been the mood there at RNC?
You know, it's been a great feeling, not just because this is a big day for the American people, but it's a good day for everybody, regardless of your political leaning or your ideology. The fact that there is no collusion and no meddling, no interference in the 2016 election on behalf of the Trump campaign and the Russians should make everybody feel good.
Wait. You're not reading all of the Democrat DNC press releases here now. Have you been not you working in a parallel universe? Have you not paid attention?
You know, I wish I could say I was. Unfortunately, I have been subject to all of their talking points all day long. But no, yesterday's report reaffirmed what we've known all along. There was no collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. And try as the Democrats may, they're going to really show their true colors. This is politically motivated. It has been. It's all been about delegitimizing this president and the will of the American people since 2016.
And, of course, I was kind of teasing the issue into actually both of my earlier callers, Gary and Ernie, saying, for all intents and purposes, that Michael Avenatti's story, a $25 million shakedown, I got to hand it to him. He's not he's not shy about picking big numbers of Nike, and that's the no. Wait a second, that's the accusation. We can't say it's proven, but there is an accusation to that amount, that fact. But it's an indication of a whole series of events surrounding this investigation that seem to be crumbling as sunlight hits it. It's amazing. With that said, Blair, and again, Blair Ellis with the Republican National Committee with us this afternoon, the story that or actually a comment that was made by one of our callers about the fact that his recommendation is that the president should just take the high road, make a deal with the Democrats, say, look, focus on your game plan. The president of the United States, will focus on my game plan. Hopefully, the Republican Party, which is part of in my sphere of interest, is focusing on this game plan. Let's get on with our game plans and get away from, say, some of this pettiness. The first question to you is there a willingness in the Democrat Party and in the Democrat leadership to do just that?
I wish I could say yes, but I think Democrats have already shown their true hand over the last 24, 48 hours. We've seen Mr. Nadler from the House Judiciary Committee already state he's going to try and bring AG Barr in before the committee. We've seen several Democrats outright reject the findings of the Mueller Report in light of yesterday, which is just despicable. We know this is one of the most thorough investigations to have ever taken place in our nation's history, one of the widest ranging and longest at that. So the fact that, again, they continue to deny these findings, I think shows what this was about all along. It had nothing to do with seeking the truth. It's always been about their political agenda and their motivations against President Trump. So I think that's becoming crystal clear, and I think that's gonna really drive people to the ballot box come November 2020.
That's the other question I want to get to in a moment. Do you anticipate, and based again on what you're seeing there in Washington, D.C., and we're seeing this in the news as well, that Mueller will become the new target, one of the new targets?
I certainly hope not, because for the longest time we saw Democrats really across the board talk about how well-respected he was, how thorough he's been in his prior work. But now that the hammer's dropped and the investigation is wrapped and the outcome isn't what Democrats had hoped for, they are trying to sow seeds of doubt in Mr. Mueller's report. They're trying to find ways to question the finding. And this is just Exhibit A of how Democrats are moving the goalposts. And it's despicable, and it reeks of desperation.
You know, it's not even as if they're moving the goalposts. They're picking up their ball and they're playing playing in a totally different stadium. The other question for you, Blair, and this is one related to, of course, what next? Obviously, as you said a few moments ago, this is going to influence the upcoming elections. And by the way, we have two elections in North Carolina. I'm going to be chatting here in a few moments with North Carolina GOP Chairman Robin Hayes about this topic. And of course, we know that we've got the 3rd Congressional District race that our radio station is in the midst of. Then you have the 9th Congressional District down in Charlotte-Mecklenburg area. And I'm wondering, that is definitely a seat that's in play, both Republican and Democrat candidates, very strong situation. I'm wondering, will this, the impact of this story, shall we say, have a cascading effect on state and local elections as well?
I think so. I think we've seen at the end of the day that the Republican Party and conservative voters, grassroots voters across this country are very firmly behind President Trump, and they don't like the way that Democrats have treated the president or to that extent, any Republican candidate up and down the ballot in these states. We've seen for the last 2 years Democrats kind of pushing these baseless investigations, and that's 2 years they could have spent working with Republican members of Congress and with President Donald Trump to deliver bipartisan results for the American people. And instead, they've peddled a politically expedient narrative to appease their base, and it's 2 years wasted at the American taxpayer, at the American people's expense. So I truly think that's going to be a motivating factor for getting people to the polls. They're going to want to see people in office that are working on their behalf, not ones that are there to just push politically, savvy motivations that are going to try and, get the rise out of their base that they're looking for.
This goes back to a comment again from Ernie and Emerald Isle, who said basically going the high road. The question, of course, then goes to what exactly will. Let's start with it. What do you think will be the Republican campaign focus now that this election is passed? What can we expect from? And this is a little premature on, and you may not be in a position where you can speculate on this, but I'm just curious if there's been any conversation. It's been for all intents and purposes, and I don't want to say it. I will. A defensive posture, a reactionary or a responsive posture. That posture is over. That's gone. So let's talk about the Republican agenda, and then I want to compare that to what you think, what the Democrat agenda is going to be. Republican agenda, just to start with. Sure.
I think it's a great question, but us at the Republican Party, and I think Republican candidates and members of Congress have really done a fair job pushing the results and pushing what policies they've been achieving on behalf of the American people, whether it was the historic tax reform cuts, whether it's the fact that we've got unemployment at record lows or consumer confidence at all-time highs, the fact that across the board for every, not just demographic, but race, we've seen unemployment drop.
Wait, Blair, wait a second. You're giving me all these facts and figures, but I haven't seen any of that in the press. Are you sure it's accurate?
Well, that's been the fun part, is trying to make sure that the mainstream media talks about the results. Yeah. We are Republicans, and as such, we believe in providing results. There needs to be some kind of return on the investment, and you guys sent members of Congress to Washington to produce results. And so that has certainly been a part of the messaging battle, is making sure that the mainstream media doesn't just talk all the time about the issue du jour, which tends to be the Mueller investigation. So maybe now that this is behind us, we'll get them to start talking about the things y'all care about, the things the American people care about.
Oh, how boring to worry about what the taxpayer. Blair, thank you for putting up with my sarcasm. Blair Ellis, of course, she is the National Press Secretary for the Republican National Committee, joining us by phone this afternoon. Okay, Blair, enough with all the serious talk. Now let's talk about humorous issues. What exactly will be the Democrats' agenda at this point? Do they have an agenda?
They certainly don't. It's been obstruct and resist every step of the way. And now that the linchpin for their reasoning for not working with President Trump is gone, it makes me wonder what their new fallback is going to be for not working with him. But the only real substantive policy they have to run off of at this point, and it's not even substantive, it's like a pie in the sky, is the Green New Deal. And I hope to the good Lord in heaven that they do run on that, because it's laughable. It is socialism 2.0, and it is everything that the American people will reject. And I think we'll see that definitively over the course of the next year or two as people get out and start campaigning.
We've looked at other issues over the past year, and I want to go to a question related to polling here in just a moment with you, Blair, before we let you go. Blair Ellis, again, National Press Secretary for the Republican National Committee, and you can sense it in her voice, she's a hometown girl. She's from Raleigh, North Carolina. Blair, we've talked about some of the agenda for the Democrats. The topic, though, of issue of, and my audience has complained bitterly about the use of the word infanticide, and they would prefer the use of the word baby murders. The issue of gender and racial disparities and efforts to create more division. Are these topics the topics that the Republican Party is going to now focus on in a more focused way and a more aggressive way, and particularly on the issue of Virginia, New York, and Vermont, by the way, other states that have promoted the death of children just before or even right after birth? So will this become a topic going forward?
Of course, Republicans wholeheartedly believe in the sanctity of life and that every life matters and should absolutely be valued and cherished. And the fact that we've got Democrats in the party no longer who just are pro-abortion, but to your point, pro-infanticide or however else your listeners like to characterize it, is appalling. And I think it's just one more example of how far left the Democrat Party has shifted over the course of the last 2 years. And we need to show those Democrats an outright rejection of that ideology come 2020. And we're going to hear President Trump on the campaign trail talking about how far left they've gone. And you're going to really start hearing from Republican candidates on the ballot about how far left and what that's going to mean for the American people if those Democrats are to become, members of Congress and get in office.
All right, I wanted to ask you, wrap it up with a question on polling in just a moment, but one other quick question for you, Blair. This, of course, goes back to the introduction of Trump, who, for even some of our audience, have said he's a rhino and basically a Republican name only in the sense that he is an independent. And we've seen this. We've seen some concern, hesitancy on the part of Republicans across the country embracing President Trump. Well, in that time, actually candidate Trump. Now that this investigation clears, I want to stress that word, clears the president. And by the way, they're going to, as you just said, Blair, they're going to continue this effort on now promoting the word obstruction. Again, no proof. And so it's now we're going to see money wasted on additional congressional efforts. But will we see Republicans be more willing to, and this is a tough point, but will they be more willing to embrace the president? He's proven without question. This time, he hasn't proven without question. An independent prosecutor who had a lineup of assistant prosecutors and attorneys, all, and I hope I'm correct on this one, please correct me, all 100% were affiliated with Democrat and liberal agendas in their previous careers. This is, to me, really testimony to a very strong candidate. Will the Republicans grasp hold of that?
I think Republican people and Republican supporters in general are firmly behind this president. His polling at times has been as high as 90% approval among our grassroots base and people that are conservatives. I think that just speaks to the fact that he is able to translate across ideology. He's able to run on a record of results, and all you have to do is take a look around and see how good the economy's doing, and that people feel like they have a little extra money left over in their pocket, and that's what turns people out to the polls.
Well, and then that brings me to the final question, and I know it's a little premature, only 24 hours into it, but are you starting polling as we speak? And I've talked to polling specialists, company you've heard of, I know you are cognizant of, Elon University, Elon Poll, and I was chatting with their director, and he said polling's getting more difficult. People are a little less inclined to respond to them now. Obviously, as the year progresses, it's probably going to be more of a challenge. But I'm wondering, has the National Republican Committee working right now on getting polling data or beginning to poll the nation as a whole?
So we are constantly in the field polling. We have a pretty stellar data team here at the RNC, and we have folks stationed all across the country, but we dig into certain states at certain points throughout the year and constantly are gathering information to help us better assess where to go, who to talk to, what we need to drill down on, what we need to do a better job talking about. So absolutely, we are in the field. We have never left the field when it comes to polling, and I'm sure that over the next few weeks we'll get some really telling data that'll help us kind of redirect our narrative for the next few years. I'm
looking forward to hearing that. Blair, as always, do appreciate your time. Blair Ellis with us from the Republican National Committee. And though I think she did say go state when we started the conversation, I really think she meant go Heels, right? Oh, but you lost Blair. Okay, that's fine. Very quickly, stay with us. We got more here on Viewpoints on the Talk Station.